Hi, I'm Tye Justis. Renowned British filmmaking duo Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger had a string of unique hits that showcased not only their ability to tackle any material but master it, creating some of the most beautiful movies ever made. A Matter of Life and Death was a British Technicolor and black and white masterpiece. It's a story that defies the bounds of space and time, heaven and earth, and even God and man to prove that the greatest wonder ever conceived may indeed actually conquer all, that of love. Along with Jack Cardiff's stunning three-strip British Technicolor cinematography and Kim Hunter, Zira from the original Planet of the Apes films, what more needs to be said? Nothing. I'm Tye Justis, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Well, I could probably say a little more. Going to the movies in the 1940s was special. Going to see a film made by Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger was something extraordinary. Their names on the marquee let you know that you were in for something exceptional. Their films were epics big and small, romantic, colorful, and more so Technicolor dreams and black and white nightmares than your run-of-the-mill studio fare. From The Small Black Room and The 49th Parallel to The Red Shoes and Black Narcissus, and every film of theirs in between and after was seemingly touched by magic. A Matter of Life and Death, for me at least, was their pinnacle. It took what could have been a standard romance picture and turned it into an epic love story that to this day is at the top of its genre. This may hint at some deep-seated romantic urgings deep down underneath all my dark cynicism and bitter snark, but who knows? A Matter of Life and Death starts out with a bang, opening on Peter Carter, an RAF pilot and lone survivor of a badly crippled aircraft about to crash into the unknown. The pilot, played by English staple David Niven, who actually served in the Second World War, sends out a last desperate call over the radio to anyone who can hear him for a final goodbye to the world. He by chance gets a hold of an American radio operator, June, played by Kim Hunter, and tells her he's about to bail out to his death since the plane's flying blind, the controls are destroyed, his parachute is kaput, and the plane's about to crash. They bond and fall in love over this very short and intense introduction.
Are you in love with anybody? No, don't answer that.
I could love a man like you, Peter.
I love you, June. Your life, and I'm leaving you. Where do you live? On the station?
No, in a big country house about 5 miles from here. Lee Wood House.
Old house?
Yes, very old.
Good, I'll be a ghost and come and see you.
Peter says his goodbyes, never expecting to see June or anything else ever again. The plucky airman then jumps seemingly to his doom, and that's where it gets interesting. You see, Peter doesn't die. He mysteriously washes up on the shore, setting off shockwaves literally between heaven and earth that end with the love-struck Peter arguing not only for his life, but his right to love, despite the heavenly foul-up that allowed him to slip through the celestial cracks, unintentionally giving him a second chance. The heavens want him dead, but he wants to live and love June, whom he's not only met up with in real life, but has grown exceptionally fond of. This brings him to the seemingly highest court imaginable, the Divine One, chaired by the Almighty himself. There, Peter has to fight for his right to live and love, no matter what the ethereal bylaws may dictate. After all, what's more important than love on any plane of existence? In a twist, Heaven was filmed conspicuously in black and white, and Earth in glorious Technicolor to show that Earth is where one wanted to be. The protagonist, Peter, is hounded and almost tricked by the heavenly messenger tasked with getting him back up into the celestial fold. Known in the film simply as Conductor 71. Goring chews up the scenery as a flamboyant 14th century French-style fop, trying to lure Peter back into the afterlife. The rest of the cast was again populated with Powell Pressburger regulars, the next being Roger Livesley, who was in 3 of Powell and Pressburger's films: The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, I Know Where I'm Going, and this film, where he plays a doctor treating Peter's progressively worsening headaches. He helps Peter both in this world and later in the hereafter. As the climax approaches, a celestial jury and prosecutor, played by the multi-talented Raymond Massey, argue for Peter to stay dead while he pleads for his life in spirit form while his physical self undergoes the knife, literally making this a case of life and death. Peter wins his case as Raymond Massey concedes that though there is nothing stronger than the law in the universe, that on Earth, nothing is stronger than love.
Well, of all the dirty tricks.
This is contempt of court. I'll have you committed.
Commit away. Don't answer any more questions.
Do you realize that by this attitude, you've forfeited any chance of winning your case?
All right, but you won't get June as well.
Your Honor, members of the jury, I'm afraid he really does love her. Your witness.
Suffice to say, Peter makes it and is allowed to live a long and happy life with June. In another twist and nod to the fourth wall, the doctor performing the brain surgery on Peter is the same actor who plays God in the heavenly court. This is also a way the filmmakers kept the audience guessing the entire time to whether Peter was really being pulled between heaven and earth, or if it was all just hallucinatory. Shot in both classic black and white and 3-strip Technicolor, this film was the best of both worlds, much like MGM's The Wizard of Oz 7 years before. Though this film had what Oz didn't: director of photography Jack Cardiff as cinematographer. Cardiff was a master at painting with light, also being a painter in real life, making copies of famous paintings when he was younger and couldn't afford the real thing. Cardiff also lit and photographed the classic films The African Queen, The Prince and the Showgirl, and The Barefoot Contessa. The more cumbersome prop in this film was a literal moving stairway to heaven, lovingly nicknamed Ethel. It was made using a combination of hanging miniatures, blue screen, and actual escalating and de-escalating stairs like at a 1980s department store. Ethel had 106 steps, each 20 feet wide, and was driven by a 12-horsepower engine and was so loud that all the dialogue shot on her while moving had to be dubbed in post. Camera operator Jeffrey Unsworth's signature smoky diffusion, seen for the last time in 1978's Superman, is fantastically present here as well. In A Matter of Life and Death, Earth, as I mentioned briefly before, is presented in rich, alluring Technicolor, while the bureaucratic, very British postmodern heaven is shown in black and white. This is even mentioned in the film as the fourth wall is straddled by Conductor 71.
When he's starved for Technicolor up there.
Now, this was to emphasize the beauty and near paradise of the earthly plane compared to a cold, regimented afterlife. This was a little controversial at the time, since nothing was supposed to be portrayed as greater than the angelic hereafter. Jack Cardiff pushed this visually with his painterly eye, making Earth where the audience wanted to be for as long as possible, fighting alongside Peter and June, even against the Almighty and his heavenly chorus themselves. The underlying theme here, beyond love and death, would be politics. Yes, politics. According to film scholar Ian Christie, the way the Americans and British characters were handled by the Archers, Powell and Pressburger's production company, was representative of the way America and most of the world felt in the 1940s, post-war, about England's world-spanning colonization tactics and expansion of power at any cost.
Jefferson Lincoln Brown, American citizen.
A nice touch was including a regiment of black soldiers, while the multitude of deceased service members are being scanned as they watch Peter fight to live and love again in the Heavenly Gallery. Something you wouldn't have seen a lot in many films of the time, though there were many black soldiers who fought and died in every Anglo-American war. A Matter of Life and Death, though an older film, has lived on and been paid homage to in many popular films and TV shows over the decades, in many ways becoming a part of our collective romantic subconscious. During and after World War II, films were rapidly changing. GIs coming home after seeing endless human carnage on the battlefield weren't satisfied anymore with the same old lighthearted fluff that got many through the Great Depression, and this film is evidence of that.
What do you think the next world's like? I got my own ideas.
Peter.
I think it starts where this one leaves off. Or where this one could leave off if we'd listened to Plato and Aristotle and Jesus. With all our little earthly problems solved, but with greater ones worth the solving.
This is also evident in the massive popularity of film noir during and after the war. But oddly, certain reminders were seen as too difficult for audiences to deal with by film boards, at least in the United States. Take the name of the film. In its initial release around the world, it pretty much kept its original title, A Matter of Life and Death. But when it was released in the United States, it was renamed Stairway to Heaven, referencing one of the film's major set pieces. It was thought that the American movie-going public would think death in the title would be too maudlin so soon after the end of the war. Either way, the film, as almost all Powell Pressburger outings were, was a smash hit. The vibrant, hyper-realistic 3-strip British Technicolor and the film's whimsically romantic fantasy story sat well with just about everyone. The British filmmaking partnership of Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger made influential films together for the better part of 3 decades. They collaborated on 24 films between 1939 and 1972, mainly stemming from original concepts by Pressburger, with the scripts written by both Pressburger and Powell. Powell did most of the directing, while Pressburger did most of the producing and assisted with editing, particularly in the way of music. They shared a writer-director-producer credit for most of their films, the best known being The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp in 1943, A Canterbury Tale in 1944, I Know Where I'm Going in 1945, A Matter of Life and Death in 1946, Black Narcissus in 1947, The Red Shoes in 1948, and The Tales of Hoffman in 1951. Powell and Pressburger were eventually honored for their contributions to British cinema with the BAFTA Academy Fellowship Award in 1981, the most prestigious award given by the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. With the immersive, colorful style of Michael Powell's direction, breathtaking 3-strip Technicolor, and brilliant cinematography by Jack Key Paints with Light Cardiff, it's no wonder that this film places close to the top of every top 10 best British films list. I'm sure that quite a few film fans would also agree that this film is simply one of the greatest romantic movies ever made.
As Sir Walter Scott is always saying, in peace, love tunes the shepherd's reed. In war, he mounts the warrior's steed. In halls, in gay attire is seen. In hamlets, dances on the green. Love rules the court, the camp, the grove, and men below and saints above. For love is heaven, and heaven is love.
Not enough can be said about how much Martin Scorsese did to keep Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger's legacy alive, including seeking out an aging Powell and giving the man and his films a second renaissance. Scorsese fell in love with Michael Powell's The Red Shoes when he first saw it when he was just a boy of 9 in a movie theater with his father. That's where his love for the films of the Archers began and has never ended. They inspired him to make films himself. Scorsese has rightfully become the steward of the Archers' legacy, eventually reviving not only Michael Powell's films, but his reputation as well after being cast out of the movie business for his first solo effort away from Pressburger, Peeping Tom, in 1960. Tame by today's standards, it set the critics and censors into a frenzy that basically cost Powell his career. Gaining more and more success, Scorsese tracked down his seemingly hermited idol, whom he wasn't even sure really existed, since at the time Powell Pressburger was rumored to be just a pseudonym for other directors, since so very little was written about him by the mid-70s. Meeting Powell through a mutual acquaintance, Scorsese told him that he was a great source of inspiration for a whole new generation of filmmakers, himself, Spielberg, Schrader, Coppola, and De Palma. From that moment on, aided by that group of up-and-coming filmmakers, Powell became a beacon of cinematic light under the world once again. Employed at Zoetrope Studios by Coppola, Powell also started teaching the craft he once mastered, delighting audiences with his belief of taking chances with artistic freedom. Scorsese, after tracking down the best of Powell's films, also began getting them screened, and is the reason we have a few Powell and Pressburger films today with commentaries by Michael Powell himself. The last 15 years of Powell's life were a second chance given to him by the kids who grew up loving and being enchanted by his movies. Scorsese even introduced Powell to his last wife, Scorsese's editor at the time, Thelma Schoonmaker. Powell passed away in 1990, 2 years after his former writing and producing partner Emeric Pressburger in 1988.
Yes, Mr. Fallon, nothing is stronger than the law in the universe, but on Earth, nothing is stronger than love.
When I first watched A Matter of Life and Death, I was hooked. It's a film with so many intricate layers. It's a war story, a story reflecting the transitional politics of the era, a story about spirituality, and above all, a story about the transcending bond romance can have on all of us. The films of Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger weren't like anything else out there. The films they made had a rare quality, a spark that few other films have even today. They had a magic that makes a movie like this one timeless. And lastly, A Matter of Life and Death gives us the hope that one day that singularly capricious emotion may ultimately conquer all. Like Massey says in the film, nothing is stronger than the law in the universe, but on Earth, nothing is stronger than love. I'm Tye Justis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.